United States they give dark sky locations. We know that there are not many dark sky locations out there anymore, so I'm looking forward to the talk of Eileen and Tom.
Thank you. Starlight, star bright, I stepped out to visit with you tonight. I looked all around, you were nowhere to be found. Oh, where did you go? I'm missing you so. The years went by and I stayed inside, watching my idiot box and staring at the screen, dancing all night under flashing lights and mirrored disco balls spinning around. When I stepped outside, I was barely alive. My eyes stayed glued to the ground. Oh, what did we do to you? All those years, I didn't know I was missing you. The lights creeping out across the land, people in places building up fast, bigger and brighter. Did we ever realize what we were doing to the night? Starlight, star bright, I stepped out to visit with you tonight. I looked all around, you were nowhere to be found. Oh, where did you go? I'm missing you so. When was the last time you stepped outside at night and looked up? And what could you see? And how did it make you feel? Light pollution is growing at twice the rate of the population. It's doubling every 8 years. And in some places, scientists predict that no stars will be visible in 20 years. And this is one of those places. Over 80% of the world's population lives under the sky glow of light polluted skies. And in the United States and Europe, it's even worse. 99% of the population cannot experience a natural night. So what is light pollution? Light pollution is the human-made alteration of the naturally occurring light levels outside. And it's the result of bad lighting. Unshielded, misaimed, too bright, too white, too many, and on all night. And when we talk about light pollution, we're talking about a couple of different types. The first is skyglow, and this is a dome of brightness. You can see it on the right-hand side of the screen, on the horizon that blots out our view of the night sky. And skyglow is caused by the misdirected light scattering through our atmosphere. The second one, glare, you're all familiar with from the headlights in cars, from unshielded street lights and also spotlights blinding you. And light trespass, which I'm sure many of you all are already familiar with. That's intrusive and unwanted light that comes into your property, into your home, into your bedroom. And the sources can be municipal, business, or residential lighting. So in addition to losing our view of our night skies, starfield, light pollution has serious impacts in other areas. Artificial light disrupts the natural circadian rhythms of all living organisms on Earth. Humans, insects, nocturnal pollinators, plants, birds, and more. It disturbs the predator-prey dynamics. It reduces crop yields. And it harms baby hatching turtles because they go for the lights of the houses, not for the glow of the moon in the ocean. It harms migrating birds and aquatic life, both freshwater and saltwater. And I was surprised to learn how much even trees and fireflies are impacted. So trees that are situated under a steady source of light, they bud earlier and they lose their leaves later. Fireflies attract their mates by their blinking patterns. And with too much light, they can't find each other, and it just makes it that much harder for them to see, which affects their reproduction, and it's a contributing factor to the plummeting population of fireflies. Every species has evolved in sync with a 24-hour cycle of night and day, and we all rely on both the light and the darkness to maintain that balance. And the health of everything on the planet depends on this natural rhythm, the circadian rhythms. So, in terms of our health, humans are affected by artificial lighting, our physical health, our mental health, and also our spiritual health. We're losing that feeling of awe and mystery that comes from gazing up at a star-filled night sky. And artificial light has been linked to cancers, breast and prostate, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disorders, anxiety, depression, and of course, sleep disorders. And recently, scientists are finding links to Alzheimer's. And even the smallest amount of light affects our sleep and affects every other species on the planet. And light pollution wastes an enormous amount of energy and money, and it's contributing to climate change. So all this wasted energy is costing us money as taxpayers and as consumers. And our star-filled skies, night skies, have been part of our cultural heritage and evolution. It's been part of our myths and our creation stories, our festivals. And long before clocks and calendars, the stars told people when to plant, when to harvest, and even told them what weather was coming in. So staring up at the night sky has been the inspiration for explorers, astronomers, and astronauts. And it's also been inspiration for art and music and literature throughout the ages. And never in my wildest imagination would I have thought that I would have lost sight of the stars over my head at night. But that's what's happening. Literally, they're disappearing from view. And there's simply no reason for it. So there are solutions to this, and Tom Reinert, the next speaker, will talk about these. So let me turn this over to Tom, who's the president of DarkSky International.
Thank you, Eileen. Okay, I'm going to talk about what's causing light pollution and what is the solution to light pollution. So, as Eileen mentioned, light pollution is doubling in something like every 8 to 10 years in North America and Europe. And that far exceeds the increase in population. And it's having all these adverse effects. So the question that begs is why? Why is light pollution increasing? And people say, well, population growth, but it's exceeding population growth. So it's really about population patterns, and I'll talk about suburbanization. And it's bad lighting infrastructure society-wide. If I had to explain the cause of light pollution in one word, it would be automobiles. I had my 70th birthday a few weeks ago. Since the day I was born, the population of the United States has doubled. The number of cars has quadrupled. Okay, think about that. How did that happen? Well, we went from a society that had 1 car per family to 2 cars per family, and we're moving towards 1 car for every adult. That is an extraordinary increase in the number of automobiles. And automobiles bring with them light pollution. Why? Well, you have headlights, but you have streetlights. The number 1 cause of light pollution is streetlights. But why do we have streetlights? Safety. We have streetlights because lighting companies want to maintain production load at night. They shunt their excess electricity to municipalities with cheap light energy sales for streetlights. They sometimes install the fixtures because they have a technical problem of having peaks and valleys in the day of production. Well, you think about it. We're moving to a battery technology. We should be recharging our cars and homes at night, not wasting light on streetlights that duplicate what our headlights do. So automobiles also bring with them car dealership, gas stations, parking lots at big box stores, all major sources of pollution. And on top of that, we've done a transition to LEDs in the last decade. LEDs are much cheaper light cost per energy. So what happened? When they were introduced, rather than make savings in energy costs, companies, individuals, governments increased the light to the cost. And they moved to blue LEDs rather than yellow end of the spectrum, which makes light pollution worse. LEDs are not inherently evil. They can be adjusted. In fact, their virtue is you can actually adjust color, intensity, and schedule, but they're not utilized effectively. I say that most light pollution is caused by what I term mindless lighting. No one thinks about lighting when they implement it in most cases. They say, oh, lighting's good, I'll just get more of it. Well, lighting has a cost. It has an environmental cost, has a human health cost, has an energy cost. And we're becoming more aware of that. So all these factors are leading to cities like Chicago being overlit. Except that's not Chicago. That's Tyson's Corner, Virginia. In the 1950s, Tyson's Corner, Virginia was a rural gas station on a crossroads, okay? Tyson's Corner has as much light as New York City Times Square had in the 1940s. We had a very elaborate civilization in this country without excessive lighting. So here's the light pollution map of Northern Virginia, and you can see the sprawl from Baltimore and Washington, particularly how it's moving west and south from Washington into Northern Virginia. I'll come back to this map later because it shows something else. What's the good news? The good news is light pollution awareness has actually increased substantially, and my organization, DarkSky International, takes a lot of credit for that. We have gotten publications, all these publications have published about light pollution. If you go to the Smithsonian Natural History Museum, there's an exhibit called Lights Out, which educates you about light pollution, and the academic community has picked it up. Last year, Science magazine had an issue devoted to light pollution. The British journal Philosophical Transactions did the same thing. There's a lot of astronomical and environmental research about the impact of excessive light at night. What's the solution? This is not rocket science. It's actually very simple. We have these 5 lighting principles which DarkSky International developed with the Illuminating Engineers Society. The lighting engineers in the United States agree completely on the cause of light pollution. First of all, ask yourself, what's the purpose of a light? Why are you doing it? What are you trying to see? Second of all, shield it. So you're actually lighting the thing you want to see instead of the stratosphere. Common sense. No brighter than necessary. We have very bright lights throughout our society. Your night vision is based upon relative intensity, so you can see very well with fairly dim light. Timers. Lights should be on when they're not being used. You can put timers, motion detectors, and turn them off at night. We now have some states that are enacting legislation that public buildings should be off from midnight to 6 a.m. Why are they on? Fairfax County, the schools keep their lights on all night long. Why? Oh, we're concerned with security. You turn the lights off, see how many criminals want to come into the dark. What we have learned on crime is criminals like light. They can see what they're doing. So we have a lot of excess light, particularly midnight to 6 a.m. And finally, you use warmer colors on the yellow end of the spectrum instead of the blue end of the spectrum where that's appropriate. Sometimes you need brighter bluish lights, but most times you do not. So let's bring this home. What about George Mason University? What should your role be with respect to light pollution? Well, colleges and universities should be leaders in fighting light pollution and sustainable energy use. You have knowledgeable, astronomical, environmental faculty. You have student bodies who are concerned about global warming. You have respect in your communities. And these are really, George Mason's a small city. You do good lighting in George Mason, the community can see it and emulate it. What's the reality? Well, unfortunately, it's a bit sad. George Mason's over here. Charlottesville, University of Virginia. Harrisonburg, James Madison University. And I don't have Virginia Tech over here. The reality is, we should be very proud of our Virginia educational system. We have great colleges and universities, but they are hot spots on light pollution in Virginia. And that's something we can't be proud of. Virginia should be doing a better job on this, as should all colleges and universities nationwide. Why are universities so bad? Well, you have poorly designed sports lighting. You can do sports lighting well where it ends at the edge of a field. That's how high that technology is now. But so much sports lighting, you go with the cheapest alternative, which is just flood lights. Then you don't turn it off when it's not being used. A lot of universities have huge parking lots, which they overlight, just like big box stores. There has been a feeling that lighting campuses as much as possible will give you security. It doesn't. Intelligent lighting preserves your night vision, lights what you need. No one wants unsafe lighting, but lighting engineers can do it the right way where you're not overlighting the community. And the worst of all, in most states, this is being supported by taxpayer money. And I personally do not like my taxes going towards light pollution. Virginia actually has some things that are good. There's actually a statute in Virginia that says we should protect observatories. And communities can enact stronger light pollution regulations around observatories. Fairfax County has in fact done that. Turner Observatory in Great Falls last year, they enacted a half-mile radius saying more stringent light pollution protections. Well, George Mason has this great observatory, except the law doesn't apply to state property. So the law does not protect the George Mason Observatory. That makes no sense. That needs to be changed. Some colleges and universities are starting to address this issue. I have a typo here, that should be AAS. It's the American Astronomical Society. It has a Campus Shine program where some astronomy professors are trying to get movements. There are some good universities working on it. Princeton last year, they had their homecoming. All these alumni come back to campus. And the students, to their credit, and the next day in their newspaper said, "Why is our campus overlit just because alumni are coming here?" They saw the problem and they called it out. Action in university communities requires some work. It requires changing light fixtures. It requires thinking more intelligently about lighting. But this is necessary. And this is purely part of the sustainability issue related to global warming. I had a European advocate say, if we can't solve light pollution, we don't have a prayer on global warming. Because light pollution only requires very limited action on the personal level. It requires some adjustments, but it's using smarter technology, thinking about how you use lighting. Now, I speak to students around the country, and I hear a lot of pessimism. You know, the zombie apocalypse is coming. Why bother? And what I tell them is, in my lifetime, the water and the air in the United States have improved substantially. In the 1960s, Lake Erie outside Cleveland caught on fire because there was so much water pollution. That woke people up. And today, the water quality in the United States is cleaner than it's been in 100 years. Much the same story on air pollution. In the 1960s, you couldn't breathe in the city of Los Angeles or the city of Pittsburgh. We've cleaned up the air because we realized we had an environmental problem. We need to do the same thing with light pollution. But this is something that my generation will not do. It's the generation of the students here at George Mason, and it's time for you to address this problem. Thank you.